Welcome to episode 22 of the Hard Truth About B2B e-commerce. I'm your co-host, Isaiah Bollinger, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tim.
Hi, I'm Timothy Peterson. I'm a CMO of a sports tech startup, and I'm also a wonderful and happy advisor and a strategic advisor to Trellis. Great to have you all here on the Hard Truth About B2B e-commerce today. And I could dive right into our sponsor, if you like. I think that would be a great idea. So let me tell you, we have a special treat today. Not only am I going to read about our sponsor mention, but our guest works at our sponsor. So it's going to be a double benefit here. So let me tell you about Punch Out To Go. They are a global B2B integration company specializing in connecting commerce business platforms with e-procurement and ERP applications. Punch Out To Go's iPaaS technology seamlessly links business applications to automate the flow of purchasing data. With their solution, you can immediately reduce integration complexities for punch-out catalogs, electronic purchase orders, invoices, and other B2B sales order automation documents in order to accelerate your business results. And since we have the benefit of having Jessica Wetzel here today, I would love to hear if she has anything to add to our sponsor mention, first of all.
Well, of course. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thanks guys for the opportunity to join you guys today. And
Absolutely.
From Punch Out To Go, I'm actually a former customer of Punch Out To Go and just recently moved over to work for the business because I saw so much value in automating the sales order flow between buyers and suppliers. So, excited to dig in today and have a conversation about the hard truth of B2B e-commerce.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons that we're really excited to bring you on, Jessica, and I really appreciate you making the time, is, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about Punch Out To Go, but you're actually fairly new at the company, and your background before that is, most of it is a pretty long background of 16 years working in the trenches at a B2B company, and I think I think you started their e-commerce program is what you told me, or sorry if I don't remember the exact details, but I think, this is a long time ago, so they probably didn't have e-commerce when you first started, or it was just starting out.
Yeah. The business I worked for was bringing the management of the platform in-house, so it was outsourced for a amount of time, and there was just a bigger focus about 10 years ago, a bigger focus on, hey, this is a thing, this is an important channel, like let's put some strategy and efforts towards it and bring it in-house, and that's when I was brought on board to help get that off the ground.
Yeah, and it's funny you say 10 years ago this is a thing, but part of the reason we're doing this podcast is a lot of people still don't have e-commerce and B2B, or they're very early on, they're in year one or year two. And so you guys, in a lot of ways, I would say you guys are probably one of the earlier adopters in B2B, and it sounds like, that helped the company quite a bit.
Absolutely. The channel grew quite a bit as, over my time there in working in medical distribution, focused on primarily the schools across the nation. We found that, you put some products out there, you try to sell some products online, you want to drive business and views and usage of the website, and then your customers come back and say, I would use this more, but I need to see my special pricing, or I need to get somebody to approve things first. And you start to realize it gets pretty, B2B, like B2B e-commerce can be pretty complex, right? Your B2B shoppers have different needs than your B2C websites have, and so you have to blend all those B2C best practices. You can't forget those, because these are still human beings that are used to shopping online and having that easy experience. But you also have to add in all the complexities of buying and procuring for a business, right?
Yeah, it's almost like the hard truth of B2B e-commerce is that it's pretty hard, right? It's pretty complicated.
This is very accurately named. Yeah.
Let us write.
And that's one of the first things I wanted to talk with you, and what I was really impressed with our first conversation was that you had over the years, it sounded like, in the beginning you probably didn't do this because you didn't know as much, but as you learn more, you realized how important it was to write requirements. And I think you even mentioned that at one point you wrote like a 75-page requirements doc for a new project. And I was pretty impressed by that, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they think it's easier than it is, or they say, oh, hey, let's just hire Trellis or an agency and, go build my site. And it's like, well, what do we need to build? You might need a 75-page requirements document to do a good job and build a new site. And you were able to do that internally, which I thought was pretty impressive, because a lot of companies need consultants or experts to do that for them. So to simplify, how would you kind of, for someone that's, not ready to write a 75-page requirements document, maybe let's start with like a 10-page requirements document or a 5-page, like where would you start, or what advice would you give to someone that,
I've learned obviously over the years, and trust me, learned the hard way in some cases. But what I, came to realize when it came to these types of projects was, like 80% of the project was really just planning as a business what you really wanted to do. And if you get that part like really right, and you really understand and think about as a business, and agree and align as a business what you're trying to accomplish, then when you involve your development team, or whatever consultants you have helping you, like it's going that building part should go a lot more smoothly. That'll take away a lot of the pain in that development part, because you've already really outlined and figured out what you want. And some of the ways that you can do that is involving the other business units in making decisions, and not like having a bunch of surprises, because that's where you start to, things go off the rails, right? Is if you haven't really figured out ahead of time, hey, if I build this, it's going to affect downstream, maybe order processing, or my ERP system, or how are they going to return something, whatever it is, right? Like there's always a downstream effect. Is in e-commerce touches everything. Okay, it's part sale, it's part sales, and part customer service, and part IT, and part accounting. Like there's it touches everything. And so what I did was work with my different business units to understand what are you doing today, how does e-commerce affect you today, maybe it isn't affecting you today, but you think in your head, why isn't e-commerce doing some of these things? Like that would sure make my life a lot easier. Talking to customer service and saying like, what is your most common phone call, right? And lots of times it was like an easy one might be just, where is my order, right? So having a way to like go online and like check your order status, like that could be an easy win for the business. So talking, and so that really, when you talk with all your business units, you can't do it in a silo, right? You have to talk to all your business units because you affect everybody. I always used to say, like, my website. If I had made any mistake on my website, customer service would bear the brunt of it, right? They get all the phone calls, so you have to work really closely, with your business teams. And so just collecting that information, that feedback, that really gives you a really good idea of what you're actually trying to accomplish and how it affects downstream, and then like what improvements and efficiencies you can rank to say like these are really like low-hanging fruit that we should do, and then once you have that knowledge internally, and you really have that alignment internally, then you can go talk to a consultant, and they can do a much better job telling you, first of all, an estimate of how long it's going to take. Like you'll get like much better like quotes and estimates because there's like a more clear idea of what they're building, and it's not so ambiguous as you go. And then everyone's really clear on like what they're supposed to be building and what the outcomes are supposed to be. So I feel like that's been my learning lessons.
Yeah, no, that was a really great answer. And I think what you said earlier was so important about how e-commerce touches everything. It's actually Tim helped us. We've been working on kind of our messaging and our branding at Trellis, because we do a lot of things, and it can be challenging because, we do so many different things, but how do you distill that? So actually our new mission is kind of simplified in that it's just make commerce simple. We're trying to kind of get rid of the e-commerce in some of our messaging, because it's just commerce. It's just, it's just business, right? And it just happens to be online. And really,
Correct.
it touches all the parts of business. So you really have to think about it as every business unit, not like this separate e-commerce division that's like separate from everything else. And then, that's where everything I think falls apart, because they put some guy in a silo, and if he's not talking to all the departments, they're going to fail,
I mean, this isn't the place for it, but I'll just share this one little tidbit. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that really, with those siloed things, are hilarious stories at this point. Like working with LL Bean when they first were doing their website, and they had their catalog team, and then they had their call center team and their store team, and then it's like, well, what do we do with this new thing, for our website, right? Like, what do we do with it? Like, it's over here somewhere. And of course, they're doing a great job now, and everything is really integrated in a very sophisticated way, and there's lots of tech and tools, and so they've come a long way. But it's fascinating just seeing how, where people are in different stages, in their journey to get there, and a lot of people in B2B, unfortunately, took longer, or somehow didn't quite get there as quickly as a lot of people in B2C. And so that's at least been my observation, along the way.
Yeah. And we're trying to help catch them up, right? That's why we're doing this podcast. So I think your advice was really, really valuable. And I think requirements is really where I would start, right? Like, I think you need to have someone internally like yourself in the company that is capable of thinking about the business at a, holistic level. Well, a lot of the things that we've learned of this podcast is that you need someone internally, whether it's an e-commerce manager, they can be called the e-commerce manager or the VP of e-commerce, whatever you want to call them, but they need to be kind of in charge of e-commerce and working with all the departments and gathering requirements. I think that's the first. If you don't have that person, it's very hard to make progress, right? Because something will just kind of get missed. But yeah, so that was great. So I think we can move on.
Well, you could never really move on, right? I mean, if you don't have those requirements, because the topic I was going to bring up, next does of course flow from this and tie to this, but it's really the marketing, right? So you're thinking about B2B e-commerce, and maybe you've gone through this whole process of the requirements. Let's just say that you've done like the best version of that. But the marketing is really a separate conversation, because like you decide what happens in the business, what the goals of the business are, all the different teams have to get together. But now you have this thing, like how do you get out into the world differently, and communicate with your customers differently. So just you could dive in from any angle, but kind of the observation that we've often made is that, again, somehow B2C was a little bit ahead or a little bit more sophisticated than B2B. What do you think about even that premise about B2C being ahead of B2B with marketing for e-commerce?
Yeah, when I was first working on the e-commerce website, and we talked about some B2B companies now tried to figure out their strategy, right? And where does this all fit in with everything else we've done for all these years? How do we to fit this e-commerce situation in here? And one of the things I focused on was trying to drive, like I said, drive users to the website and kind of prove out this is how our people want to shop, right? This is how our customers want to shop. But you got to get, like you said, you got to get the word out. And one of the capabilities of any website that you want to make sure as you're selecting a website or thinking about your strategy is making it SEO friendly, right? So that's something is a consideration for any e-commerce strategy, and in proving out that I don't know. I think I think there's been a lot of studies that say that your B2B buyers they're Googling it, right?
For sure.
Or they're going on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
there's a lot of data to support that.
There's a lot of data that already supports that.
They're probably not going on a paper catalog. Let's just They're
that
probably not opening a paper catalog, right? Can we
you
agree that that's less likely to be happening now?
I think if you're, right. I mean, I hear, you can mail something out, something pretty, right? And that helps them remember you, or like triggers you from a brand,
Yeah.
a branding standpoint, kind of pushing that message out. But, when they are actually ready to buy something, making sure you're, in the network, in the realm of where they're going to look, right? And
Yeah.
so that's where I look to, rely a lot on SEO and paid advertising, building up that email. Email is not dead. Okay, I think we could still do some emails.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Building
alive
out
and well. It's alive and
building out
well.
that email list, and and even like moving towards like the personalized emails, right? All those simple ones, right? You abandon your cart, or you something, a product you looked at goes on sale or comes back in stock. You
Mhm.
can get all these like notifications, um, which your users, depending on, if you have end users or procurement people that you're working with, but that those are all different drivers, to your site and for purchase, as well as blog content and our usually B2B sales are more complex, and they can involve capital equipment or really complicated type
Yeah.
of equipment, and so having uh, thought leadership and
Yeah.
explaining the different, like, complicated differences between these things, and then creating that journey of, okay, I'm just learning about this complex device. How do I even orient myself around investing all this money and spending my business's money? And I'm going to learn about that. And so having that thought leadership, and then kind of leading them down the funnel, whether it's a product configurator or reaching out that's at that point they might reach out to a salesperson to get a quote. At that point they might want to talk to somebody to learn more or get like a finalized quote. So kind of leading them down all those journeys that they need to take.
Yeah.
So one quick follow-up there. What do you think about the role of social media in B2B e-commerce marketing? That's been like rough for a lot of people, or non-existent for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I think my experience in social media is that uh, it's growing. There was a few years there where you get a lot of eyeballs, but not a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
conversions necessarily from social media. Was just my personal experience. But the eyeballs are important. It's kind of like, well, you could mail out a catalog, right? You could produce or mail out a printed catalog. Or push your messaging via social media to, those are different ways to get in front of people that that wouldn't have thought about you unless they were Googling, right?
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
interesting is it's kind of the rise of the B2B influencer, actually. It's something
Yeah.
I've been talking to people about. There are more and more all the time, because they're so focused, right? It could be
Yeah.
about anything, a generator, it could be anything, and they're in that space, and they have, their YouTube videos and their channels that
They're the how-to guy. It's like the
The
how-to.
how-to, yeah, exactly. That thought leadership of like, okay, this is my, complex device, and I'm going to show you guys how to use it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
where you go to figure out how to configure your, I was medical devices for a long time, right? So,
Sure.
or special education supplies, right? So all those things are how to like make your life easier and, at your job, and those types of, like, you could do, we did like YouTube videos and things like that to share that content, and then get it, like, again, you get it indexed, you get it, you can share it via your social media channels, but it gets indexed with Google.
It'll
There's
help your
different ways to
SEO,
leverage
right?
it.
If you're doing better social media, your SEO, it kind of all goes together. You have
It
better
all
brand
ties
awareness.
together. You could
So
email it out,
yeah.
blog
So
posts.
one thing that I think is a challenge for companies is, and one of the reasons I think companies fail with B2B e-commerce, or maybe fail isn't the best word, or they just don't get a lot of success. They don't get a ton of ROI, or they don't believe in it enough, or they underinvest, is because they don't understand the marketing piece of it. and they see it as like just an order processing investment. Like, okay, I order process on my ERP, but yeah, we'll make it online. But I don't, that's worth one customer service rep. So I'm only going to invest 50 grand a year in it. And as you know, 50 grand a year doesn't get you that far with B2B e-commerce. It'll get you something. We could probably build you a site. It's just not going to do everything you need, right? I'm sure you guys, you don't have to tell us the numbers, but I'm pretty sure you guys have spent more than that over the years at Scruff.com.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'm getting at is, I think if you see the bigger picture and how the site can bring awareness, and actually I just got off a call with a B2B customer that we're using a pretty sophisticated B2B site for, and it's a lot of request to quote, and they're starting to get more, automated with e-commerce, but they're getting way more business because they have a nicer site, people take them more seriously, is an acquisition channel for them. But then the sales has to be okay. Like, it has to work with sales, and sales sees the site as a benefit. And hey, I get all these leads. I don't have to hunt down leads. Someone buys a $5 thing, but then I can call them up and sell them $100,000. Like, can you talk a little bit about how your previous company did that, and how was sales integrated with marketing, and was there a good process for that? And
yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It's not just an order taker machine by any means. This is again, this is where people are, online and digital is where people are looking to buy products. So this is, like I was talking about before, it's grabbing people in the height of their research phase or their discovery phase.
It's your marketing budget. It's your marketing budget.
It's your lead generator. And it's where customers and prospects are going to learn more about your brand and your business, just like your business in general. Do I want to do business with you? As well as your product information, right? They don't want to really call you and talk to you about maybe some people do, but a lot of people don't really want to call you. And they want to go online and tell me easily and simply what about your product, right? This is where I'm going to go to, we talked about product demonstration videos, user manuals, all that rich content, product data, all that branding, that great branding that your marketing team comes up with about how great your business is and your value proposition. All of that is your website is really the face is your business's face of the world, right?
Yeah.
When it goes to your website, it's like a first impression. It's like meeting somebody for the first time. That is usually your business's first impression for prospects and customers, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want it. You want it to be modern. You want it to fully reflect your business's culture and branding and values and everything you want to get out in front of the customer. Your website really needs to reflect that, because that's primarily how people are interacting.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to understand, because instead of thinking about it as just your order processing budget, it could be part of your branding budget, it's part of your marketing budget, it's part of your sales budget because it'll help you get more sales, and part of your operations and order processing budget. So when you collectively add those numbers all together, then that 50,000 becomes 200,000 or 300,000, whatever it is, and now all of a sudden you can move the needle and have a much better e-commerce website that'll actually generate more sales and marketing than if you just treat it as this little online order portal that maybe it's just a URL on top of your ERP, right? At that point, it's you might as well just make your ERP order form your website, right?
Like a PDF, right?
Just send everyone a PDF, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's a really good point when you're trying to advocate for budgets internally and say this is an important thing. You're right. You have to make that really clear and distinct that this is more than just an order portal, and working with those other teams, right? Again, and we talk about you just can't be siloed, right? You're working with all these other teams. It affects everybody.
I know, yeah.
And it might make their jobs easier, and it might automate things that otherwise they're doing manually. like we talked
Absolutely.
about at the beginning, right? You probably could automate and get some efficiencies that are good not only for your business, but also your customers, right? It makes
Yeah.
it easier for them.
Like Punch Out to Go. They
Like Punch
maybe.
Out to Go.
Do I
Exactly.
read the sponsor mention again?
I know. I feel like I gotta get it in there.
Go is.
So let's change gears a little bit, because what I also thought, what I liked about what you did at your previous company was, you guys did do research. You did have a lot of different decisions to make with platforms. You took a lot of time. I think you even said I felt bad because I spent so much time with the platforms and you didn't go with some of them. And but hey, that's part of the job. Their job is to sell, and sometimes they don't win them all. But I think it's also important that people pick the right platforms, because we have seen people on the wrong platforms, and that can be painful. I forget who it was. I think it might have been was it Brian Beck who said he had replatformed twice? He's like, don't pick the wrong platform, because he said it killed his business. I think he said he chose the wrong platform and had to replatform right after, and he just like couldn't grow for a couple of years because that replatforming process is so expensive. What you want to be on the platform making improvements, not replatforming. So could you talk a little bit about replatforming and platform, like, what was kind of your experience with that and the research that you did, and what would you kind of suggest for someone going through, hey, I don't even know where to start, like what do I do?
Yeah, it's a big decision. Like you said, you want to go on a technology and to recoup your investment into a replatforming, and you want to stay for, I would say, at least 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I recommend.
Otherwise it's just it's like sunken costs, because it's not a small effort to get all of your products and product data and your customer data, right? Like, and your customers might have like order histories or shopping lists or wish lists that you have to move over. And so it's not as, and then the integration pieces too. You might have integration points that you need to move over, and any other customization. So replatforming, you want to, it's pretty serious. You want to do your due diligence. For me, I, looked at, integrations were pretty important to me. So the vendors I chose to look at, I did what most people do. Like we were just talking, I did a Google search, and I, I read the Forrester Wave reports and the, B2B, recommendation reports and all sorts of articles. And I kind of learned, that was my first learning, was just, going through online, digitally researching the best B2B platforms and what they offered. And I had some, really like you have deal breakers, right? To kind of qualify exactly who you want to go with. So like, for instance, they had to be punch out capable. And I realized I work for Punch Out to Go, but that really was a deal breaker. I, had many customers integrated with me. I couldn't go to a platform that, didn't offer it, right? I mean, that was just, I can't just all of a sudden like not be integrated with my customers anymore.
You're taking a step back, like you want to take a step forwards,
Right, exactly. You can't, that's a great point. You can't lose anything, right? You want to have everything, you want to you want to maintain the customer's experience, and then also like enhance it, right?
Absolutely.
So I needed, the integrations were super important to me. Also integrations to our back-end systems like ERP and our CRM. Making sure that, I tried to look for ones that had that, like maybe pre-built out, or, pre-built connectors available, just as easy, make that as easy as possible for the business to do. We talked about the ability to have an SEO friendly website, the ability to add blog content, the ability to add all that rich product content and create like different lists of products that you would reorder again and again. So anyway, I made that, to your point, I made that list of everything I had today, right? And then met with the different business departments and said, what's on your wish list? What am I not doing for you today that you wish I was?
Yeah.
You know? And then it was just like kind of this huge matrix, and then narrowed it down to a few vendors, and really went through that deep dive demo process. You know, it wasn't just me in the room, right? I had uh, 3 executive sponsors in there, IT folks, marketing
Sure.
folks, product management folks, sales folks. I had, you know, representatives on the committee from a lot of different areas, and um, you know, it was a group. You know, there was a good representation, so that if there was any red flags, people were in the room to raise their hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said was really valuable around the, you know, just doing the research, looking at the top options out there. That's where I think a lot of people go wrong, is they go with some obscure option. And the problem, I think that the e-commerce platform market is going to consolidate in the sense that, like, yeah, I mean, there are ways that you could potentially build a better platform than the popular guys out there, but there's so much value in going with a top option or a top 5 option, because they have a community. The community to me is so important. Like, what are the agencies? Because you need to work with the agent, which we'll get into shortly. But you need, most of the time, you're going to find third-party consultants, agencies, people to you're not going to just install the platform and configure it. You're going to customize it. And that's where I think people go wrong, is they think, if you just think about what the platform can do and not the community and the extension, like Punch Out to Go, it's a add-on to platforms, right? Like, it's a, you know, and you guys work with pretty much all the major platforms, right? Most of
Oh
them
yeah.
in the
Oh
B2B
yeah.
space.
Hmm.
And we even had Brady on. He said it. He's like, you know, most of our customers are on Magento, Salesforce, Insight, the top platforms, right? And those are the ones that are doing well, because they're
Yeah.
they're finding developers and growing on those. And I think, you know, as much as I'd love to say that, you know, these new up and coming startups are going to be the next big wave in B2B e-commerce, I think it's pretty risky to go with something that's not one of the proven, you know, leaders
Players.
or challengers or whatever. You know how it is in the
Yeah.
Gartner report.
Yeah, I mean, that was a consideration of ours too, for sure, was what is the company's roadmap look like? Are they going to be investing in their product in the future? You know, what will the support look like? Are they, you know, releasing new features regularly? You know, are they paying attention? You know, again, we talked about B2B is different, right? Like, you know, looking at B2B specific platforms, you know, you're right. There are a bunch of niche players, but you know, not one platform is going to have every single thing that you want. You're going to have to rely on a developer to help you out, right, and really create that experience that your business, your customers, it's tailored to them, and that's what differentiates you too, right? You don't want the same website as everybody else, right?
Yeah,
That's what where, you know, you're not setting yourself apart, right? So there's different experiences you're going to want to create, so that are
absolutely.
tailored to your market. So you're going to have to find a partner to help you do that, a partner that really understands the platform that you're on. Okay, you know, hopefully is certified on it, and like truly understands the ins and outs better than anybody else, so that they could recommend solutions to you, and tell you the right. You might have the idea, but they can help tell you the right way to build that, and you know, based on the platform. And you know, the larger the ecosystem is, you know, the better pricing you're going to get, right?
Yeah, I think that's really important that you said that, and it's true. In fact, we actually focus on large ecosystem platforms because we feel like it's a better value for the customer. Because when you go with one of these ones that has a small ecosystem, and some of the enterprise leader products don't have that big of an ecosystem, like, it's like they got like all the top 1,000, you know, customers, but the ecosystem is, you know, this bit of enterprise customers. So the only agencies are these giant expensive
Yeah.
agencies, and it's like, you know, we can hire an expensive $300,000 architect for this project, and that's it. Like, your options are just so expensive. Whereas
Right.
if you go with the larger ecosystems, you know, the price
It's more competitive.
more competitive, and you have more options and a little bit better value. So
Well, as a transition between platforms and agencies, I just have sort of a comment / question here. So I've been on both brand and agency side, right? And I feel like, you know, you had brought up, Jessica, like the 3 to 5 year window, and Isaiah agreed with that, where maybe you're launching this new platform, and maybe it has a 3 to 5 year life in the, from that launch, before it becomes something else, or things happen, right? What I found really interesting is now a lot of better agencies will come out, and they're following, they're creating in their plan, like, all right, what's your evaluation cycle? Are you looking at to optimize and fully utilize what you got here, on a yearly basis, and then we're going to come back at year 3 because that should be the peak, right? Because that's, to me, I think that's actually a really helpful way of kind of thinking about it. It's like peak use and peak optimization of the platform that you've launched. 3 years from today, that's when we should have that summit meeting again and say, all right, are there 2 years of life left on this, or are we fully utilized and we got to start the plan immediately? And it's a very interesting thing. What have you seen that, or what do you think about that observation?
You know what, you're exactly right. That is the life cycle of the platform. I mean, you're going to launch your phase 1, and it's you're trying to get something to market quickly, right? And a lot of e-commerce is time to market for new features and functionality, and so you're not probably going to be leveraging every single feature and functionality that your platform offers, or that your business wants to do. And it's going to come in a phased approach. Just again, because you do want to get your products out to your market as quickly as possible. So you're gonna have some phases there, and I would say the 3 year is probably, you're probably, if it's a focused dedicated strategy by your e-commerce team in the business, then I think 3 years is achievable from a from a maximal optimization outlook. Sure. But it takes effort, right? Like I can't, you have to, it has to be part of your strategy, and you have to be looking at it every single day and really mapping out that roadmap.
Yeah. So Isaiah, what did you had some questions about agencies a little bit more?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what you said is really important. Like how and I think time to market, like you said, is just kind of touching on that 3 to 5 year span. I think that's where companies kind of go wrong with agencies, and is they try and cram too much into phase 1. And if your phase 1 takes 2 years, it's like you're already 2 years into the 3 to 5 years. And I think that's where companies need to do a better job working with agencies to simplify phase 1, get a better MVP process down that's going to get them value. Obviously you don't want a bad MVP version of your new site, but you also don't need to cram every possible feature into phase 1. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. I'm just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on what you think they should do to kind of work better with agencies. Because most of the time they're going to hire an agency, right? Like that's 80% of the time, 90% of the time,
I mean, if you're already replatforming, I mean, that's complicated enough, right? I mean, that's a huge... That's like a huge ask, and making sure that all of your again, like you really want to make sure like your customers don't lose any existing delightful experiences that you've made for them, right? And so just you want to make sure you get that, like that needs to be right. And then you probably are going to be releasing some other key enhancements. I mean, there's probably a reason, something driving you to replatform, right? There's some like key reason enhancement that you really have to make sure are included in that. And I think keeping it at that point is for like the MVP is the most achievable, because as we know, the more features and whatever you throw on is going to
more time, more complexity, more
it's more
cost.
Time, it's more complexity. Things you tweak this, it breaks this, it does that, you do that. Now you're testing it all 27,000 times, and you're never going to get anything out there. And then frankly, by the time if you release it 2 years later, like there's something new's already come.
Exactly. The
newest thing has already happened. Like your template's already out of date. Like your theme's already out of date.
For sure. Absolutely.
You gotta keep your eye on the ball and focusing on getting those key things, that the reason you're replatforming, whatever that is, getting that out, and then enhance over time,
Yeah.
have those releases.
I
And
think
that delights your customers. You don't have to have one big release that's overwhelming. Like, you can delight them, over the course of a year. That's fine.
Yeah, every month or every week, yeah, I totally agree. I think what you said is so important. We actually had a conversation recently with hopefully we'll be a new customer. We're far along in the process, and we helped them kind of understand that replatforming is more about the infrastructure change. Like, we don't need to launch a million new features to make this successful. We're launching a new infrastructure that will last them, we think, 5 years. Excuse me, at least 5 years. And then in that 5 years, we will make all the, a bajillion feature improvements.
Yeah.
Probably by the first year, he'll have a bunch of new features after we launch that makes it way better. But he doesn't have to have them all on launch. And I think once you wrap your head around the fact that this is more of a infrastructure, it's almost like, think of it like I'm redoing my ERP, or whatever it may be. You don't necessarily have to, it's an infrastructure change. And yes, you can make the site design better and you can make some improvements, but you don't have to do every little improvement that you can think of,
Right. You just want to make sure the platform that you select really sets you up to do all those other improvements that you want.
Exactly.
Right?
And then you can kind of get agile. And a big thing that we've talked about is the concept of agile and making those agile improvements. And I think that's where B2B struggles a little bit, is that they're not familiar with this kind of like agile deployment method of like, hey, we're going to deploy a new feature every week or every month, or even every day, if you got really good at it. I think that's where they're not used to that, like, fast.
Feature a day, Isaiah. A feature a
day.
Hey,
Trellis, we launch almost a feature a day on our website. I mean, it's very minor features, but we're pretty much, I mean, depending on how much time we have, Trellis is launching, we're launching to our production website almost every day. And you would, most of the time, would never know. Like, we're just incrementally improving. Like, if you go to our site right now, you'll see a little underline. It moves. If you scroll, the little simple line moves. That's a feeture improvement.
That's good. That's why you're in the Inc. 1000. That's right.
Exactly.
It's good.
Well, I think we've touched on this a lot. I think we can change gears a little bit, Tim. Maybe we can, I know you guys both have a hard stop towards the 1 o'clock. So,
well, this has been a lot of fun so far. I'm having a great time. So, a couple of the things that our listeners look forward to, at least I've heard that. A couple questions we have about success and failure. Really, first of all, what do you think constitutes a successful B2B e-commerce venture, and what might be just a factor or two that causes like maybe a failure of a B2B e-commerce venture? I mean, just quick takes on that one.
Yeah, that's a good one, because those success factors. So I'll tell you a few things. Like, one is that is probably, again, if you're working with, not in a silo and working with your other departments, you're probably going to have some key success factors that come out of those conversations. So whether it's reducing the number of phone calls customer service gets, or just growing sales of the channel, or increasing the number of this truly was one of mine, was increasing the number of punch-out integrations with your customers, right? That was one of mine, to build up that customer loyalty, and there was clear benefits for the business. So that was one of my KPIs.
Yeah.
So it's going to be based off of, why you're, again, what's driving it. When you're first starting out, it probably is going to be just sales, right? It's going to be the growth of sales, right? Are we getting business through this channel? Do we find that our customers that go through this channel we get a bigger share of wallet? Are they more loyal? You can start to gather, glean those insights, because e-commerce is a wealth of data, right? It's a wealth of data that you really don't get. And it's really difficult to measure a lot of your customer interactions in other ways, but when they come to the site, you get to track everything that they do.
It's a remarkable thing,
So you start to learn a lot about your customers, the more you drive them to the site. And so then you can create some KPIs, based off of your business's, motivation. I mean, some businesses might be selling super complicated machines or robotics, or I don't know. And so maybe people aren't just always just placed in that order online, but maybe you're generating leads, right?
Yeah.
You're the lead generator. And so there's a lot of different things you might want to measure depending on your business. And then your second question was failure. I don't like to think about the failures.
How about challenges?
Jessica doesn't fail. She doesn't fail. So she only succeeds.
I don't frame it like that. I'll tell you that. Yeah. So so the question is like about different challenges for, or what could cause it to go off the rails, right?
Yeah, that's more it, really.
Yeah.
I mean, something to really just like be a big.
Come on, you told me some stories about this. You know this.
I've heard rumors.
It can, right? It can. So what to like watch out for, like some points where you should be careful of. So there's a couple things I would think about, like your partner, your development partner is really important, okay?
Sure.
Because and anybody that you choose, whether whoever your consultant is helping you. I've had SEO consultants and paid ad consultants and development groups helping me. So those choices, they're an extension of your business. So you really have to make sure you're super clear, just like you would be with any employee, about like what their goals are and how you're measuring them, and what your expectations are there. And if you're not super clear about that, at the beginning, then that can cause issues. You might have different needs than. You might be looking for somebody to really provide a lot of consultative services. Like you don't really know what you want. You don't know what the right questions are to ask. Like you're just, help me. I know I have a vague idea of what I want. I want to sell products online. I hear it's going to grow my business. End of list. And so, maybe you need someone like really consultative that, is more of a, not just sitting there, programming, but can say, hey, from a business, this is how you integrate e-commerce into your business. And here's what the conversations you have to have. And here's the questions we need to ask. And did you think about integrating taxing and shipping? And how is your marketing team going to put promotions online? And how are discounts going to be applied? And how are the orders going to flow to your fulfillment center, right? So they're going to ask all these questions and lead you. So it's a different type of conversation, and so you have to make sure you pick the right partner for you, right? So if you need that level, then you need to find some firms don't offer that level, right? And so you have to make sure you find
I think that's very, very good point. Some firms are, give us the requirements, we'll build the thing. Some firms are more consultative, some firms are a little bit of both, and you want to find that right fit. And I think you said something else that's really important, is that I actually do think you should treat them, maybe not quite like an employee, but I think the closer you treat your agencies and your partners like real partners and like more like employees, the more effective it'll be. The more they're like ingrained in your company, the more they'll want to work for you, the faster things will get done. But if you just kind of like, see them as this very separate kind of, vendor relationship, I don't think it'll be as effective. But I'm curious.
I talk to my partners every day. I feel like I talk to them more than other people in my business sometimes. So yeah, I mean, they become your daily people at some point, right? So
yeah.
Well, I only have one more question before we wrap.
Sure.
Something that B2B can still learn from B2C. Do you have any quick impressions on that?
B2C, I think, has done a really nice job of making the purchasing process as frictionless as possible. And B2B, I still needs to figure that out. I think it still can be really cumbersome, and it's because B2B is complicated, right? Yeah. You have your primary parent account, you have all these children accounts and all these sub users and an approval workflow. Sure. They want to get a quote before they buy anything.
Yeah,
They want to
request a
negotiate.
quote or quote to cart. You know, you have the whole quote to cart. You build your quote, and then you can add it to cart and then buy it later. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to buy it later. They want to keep certain lists. And then you have to integrate with they want to integrate with their procurement systems, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there, and so I think focusing on making that order process as frictionless as possible is a really big opportunity for B2B, because right now I think that's the hard part.
Do you see that? Up on that one. Yeah. Last question. Do you see that that's where kind of the future of B2B e-commerce is going? Is that more frictionless buying experience? And just to throw in punch out to go, is that kind of where you guys are trying to fit into the equation, is make that easier? Like, is that where you see the future kind of?
It's definitely what is interested. I've always been super passionate, interested in this piece of the business, because, think about how, difficult it can be just to tie in your own back-end systems, right?
Yeah.
And so when somebody came to me and was like, you can integrate your website with your customer system, I was like, mind blown, right? It's like,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? And think about that, like that brand loyalty, like you're integrated with your customer. That's a real advanced service you provide. So yeah. I do see it's going there, but also it's an efficiency for the supplier, right? Because you're automating all these things that really was probably being done manually, in the past, and you're leveraging all this great, hopefully great like marketing and information, product information that you've already built on your website. You're leveraging all of that, but then making that whole ordering process easily. It's really tying it all together, and so I think making that process simpler is benefit only for the supplier, but also the customer. It's so much easier for the customer too, and that's what we always need to be focusing on, is like, what does our customer need? Like, we have to be focused on our customer requirements and needs, and to me, that's the hard part about B2B, right? Otherwise, everything else is kind of like, you have the shopping and the checkout and the payment, but that's where B2B is so different than B2C, and focusing on that easy shopping experience.
If only there were an agency that was focused on making commerce simple. I mean, if only there were one. Oh, hi, Isaiah. Hi.
Yeah, exactly. If only someone was working on this.
If only.
Yeah, this was great. This was definitely a really fun episode. We'll have to have you back in the future, and I'm so glad you were able to join us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Really a pleasure to be here. Really
yeah. Fun. See, I told you it was painless. It wasn't,
This was great. Thank you. Yeah, I had a ball. You guys are awesome.
All right. Thank you. Well, have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.